Ren sat on the edge of the rusty cot in his small metal room, staring at the cracked ceiling. The light above flickered weakly, making the shadows crawl like insects. This was his life now. A forgotten soldier on a forgotten world. The war had ended 5 years ago, but for people like Ren, peace didn't mean safety. He had served in the Outer Rim campaigns, fighting in battles that no one even remembered anymore. He had scars across his arms, his left knee ached every time he stood, and his sleep was full of memories he didn't want. He was just another veteran the galaxy had no use for outside. The colony of Vera buzzed with the noise of traders and miners. The air smelled of metal and oil, the scent of machines working day and night. Ships came and went, mostly freighters bringing supplies and leaving with minerals. It was a place where people survived, not lived. Ren spent most of his days fixing old machines in a junkyard. He wasn't good at much else. He'd repair mining tools, patch up broken loaders, sometimes even work on small transport crafts. It wasn't enough money to live well, but it kept him alive. One morning, as he was tightening the loose panel of a hovercart, he heard a strange sound, the kind of deep hum that only came from royal ships. He turned and saw a black handgold vessel land on the colony's main square. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Drukhari ships. The sight of them made Ren tense. He had fought against their kind during the war. Tall reptilian creatures with scales like armor and pride thicker than steel. They were ruthless, always believing themselves superior to humans. Most people avoided them when possible. But this ship was different. Its markings weren't for war. It bore the royal insignia of the Drukhari king himself. The ship's ramp lowered. Into Drukhari guards stepped out. Their golden armor gleamed in the dull sunlight. They scanned the crowd before their eyes locked on Ren. "You, human," one of them hissed in a sharp voice. "You are summoned." Ren froze. "Me? Why?" "The king demands your presence." Ren wanted to laugh. Him? A nobody? Why would the king of the Drukhari want anything to do with a poor human like him? But the guards weren't joking. Within minutes, they had him aboard the ship. The royal vessel was unlike anything Ren had seen. The hulls were wide and decorated with intricate carvings of dragons and flames. The air smelled of strange spices. Drukhari servants in fine robes moved quietly. Bowing to the guards as they passed, they led him to a large chamber. There, on a bed of silken cloth, lay the Drukhari king. Ren had seen images of him before. King Zarathos, a giant even by Drukhari standards. But now, he looked weak. His once golden scales had dulled to pale bronze. His breathing was shallow. He was dying. The king's eyes, however, were still fierce as they studied Ren. "A soldier," the king said, his deep voice echoing across the chamber. "A broken one, yet still standing." Ren stiffened. "Why am I here, Your Majesty?" The king chuckled, a low rumbling sound. "Because I am dying, and I need someone who is not Drukhari." Ren blinked. "What?" The king gestured to a small egg-like container beside his bed. "Inside is my last offspring. My people despise her. They call her cursed because she thinks like your kind. They would kill her the moment I am gone." Ren stared at the container. He could hear faint scratching inside. "I need someone who understands loss, someone who knows survival, someone who can teach her what my kind has forgotten." The king continued. "Humans are strange. You fight for others, even when there is no gain. That is why I choose you." Ren shook his head. "I don't understand. I'm just a mechanic." "I'm not. You are more than you believe," the king interrupted. The guards looked shocked, but they said nothing. The king's voice softened. "Take her far from here. Raise her as your own. Teach her your human ways. That is my last order." Ren's mouth went dry. He had come here expecting to fix a machine or answer some small request. Not this, not to become guardian of an alien heir. "This doesn't make sense," Ren muttered. "Why me?" "Because no Drukhari would protect her," the king said, closing his eyes. "Only a human would." Before Ren could argue again, the king coughed, a wet, rattling sound. The guards rushed forward, but the king raised a hand, stopping them. "Go." The king whispered to Ren. "Before my people take her from you." The container beside the bed suddenly opened with a soft hiss. Inside was not what Ren expected. It wasn't an egg. It was a small creature. A tiny dragon with emerald green scales and bright golden eyes. She looked no older than a human toddler. But when she opened her mouth, her words were clear, her tone sharp. "Are you the human?" Ren froze. "You can talk." "Of course I can talk," the little dragon said with surprising confidence. "And if you're going to be my guardian, I hope you're smarter than you look." Ren blinked. This was going to be complicated. Ren stood frozen, unsure if what had just happened was real. The dying king of the Drakari had named him a poor, forgotten human as the guardian of his last heir. A talking dragon no bigger than a house cat now stared at him with bright, golden eyes, her tiny claws tapping against the side of her container. "Are you just going to stand there like a statue?" she asked, tilting her head. Her voice was clear, not like the growls of most Drakari. "You're supposed to answer when royalty speaks to you." Ren blinked, still trying to understand. "Royalty?" The little dragon puffed out her tiny chest. "I'm Kale, daughter of King Zarthos. The last of his line, your new responsibility." Ren let out a humorless laugh. "Responsibility? I fix junk for a living. I can't even take care of myself, let alone you." Kale gave him a look that could only be described as judgmental. "You look like you've been through worse. My father chose you for a reason. I assume he didn't pick you for your looks." Ren rubbed his temple. This was getting stranger by the minute. He glanced at the king, but Zarthos was breathing heavily, his strength fading fast, despite his weakness. The king managed to lift his head slightly in focus on Ren. "You must go," Zarthos said between labored breaths. "When I die, the court will fight for her. Some will kill her. They fear her." Ren frowned. "Why, she's just a kid." The king's golden eyes softened. "She was born different. She speaks like you, thinks like you. My people see it as corruption, but I see it as hope." Kale shifted uncomfortably in her container. Her earlier confidence dimmed as if she hated hearing these words out loud. "Hope for what?" Ren asked quietly. The king took a deep, rattling breath. "My people are strong, but proud. Too proud. They do not bend, they do not listen, and they do not change. It is why we are dying." He paused, his voice growing weaker. "You humans, you adapt, you survive, you protect those you shouldn't. Teach her that. Make her more than what my people could be." Ren didn't know what to say. He was just a veteran with no future. Why would the king of a powerful race entrust him with this? Zarthos gave him a faint, almost amused smile. "Do not pretend to be small. Human, you have survived battles that killed giants. That is why I chose you." The king coughed, a deep rumble that shook his massive frame. Blood trickled from his mouth, but he ignored it. "Take her. Leave before my death is announced. My guards will not stop you, but the nobles will." Ren looked at the two Drakari guards standing by the door. They did not move, but their glowing yellow eyes followed him closely. Were they really going to let him walk away with their king's heir? "Why are you letting this happen?" Ren asked them. His voice sharped out one of the guards. A tall Drakari with dark red scales finally spoke. "The king's will is absolute. We do not question it. But when he passes, our oath ends." Which meant as soon as the king died, Ren would be on his own. Kale jumped out of the container with surprising agility and landed on Ren's shoulder, her claws gripping his worn jacket. "Well, are we leaving, or do you plan to wait until my father's enemies cut us into pieces?" Ren sighed. "You talk too much, and you complain too much." Kale shot back. The king let out a weak chuckle, his massive head sinking deeper into the silken bed. "Go, now, before it is too late." Ren hesitated, staring at the dying king one last time. There was something in his eyes, not fear, but peace, like a warrior who had finally laid down his weapon, for reasons he couldn't explain. Ren gave the king a small nod. "I'll take care of her," he said quietly. The king's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. "Then I can rest." And with that, Zarthos, king of the Drakari, closed his eyes for the last time. The moment was heavy. Ren wasn't sure what to feel. Sadness? Confusion? Fear? He hadn't asked for this. Yet now he had a talking dragon heir clinging to his shoulder, and the knowledge that an entire royal court would soon want them both dead. Do you humans always stand around this long after someone? Dies, Kale asked, breaking the silence. Ren turned his head slowly, giving her a look that could freeze molten steel. Are you always this cheerful after losing a parent? Kale's golden eyes dimmed for a moment, but her voice stayed firm. He died knowing his last wish will be carried out. That is enough for me. Her words carried more strength than her small size suggested. The guards stepped aside as Ren walked toward the exit. They said nothing, but their silence felt heavy. Like a warning, outside the royal chamber, the ship was buzzing. Drakari servants whispered in hushed tones. They all knew what had happened. They all knew their king was gone, and they all looked at Ren with hostility. Keep moving. Kale whispered in his ear. They won't touch us while we're still on this ship. But once we land, yeah, Ren muttered. I figured. The ship touched down on the outskirts of the colony dot as the ramp lowered. Ren stepped out into the dusty air of Vera, Kale still perched on his shoulder. For a moment, the colony looked the same as it always did, traders shouting, machines rumbling, the smell of oil in the wind. But Ren knew everything had changed. He was no longer just a broken veteran trying to survive. He was now the guardian of a dragon princess, one that an entire alien empire wanted dead. As they walked away from the ship, Kale spoke again, her voice quieter this time. Thank you for taking me, even if you didn't want to. Ren didn't reply. He didn't know what to say. But deep down, he already understood one thing, his quiet, meaningless life was over, and a dangerous new one had just begun. Ren had spent years in war zones, faced alien beasts, and survived battles that left entire cities in ruins, yet somehow, walking through the dusty streets of Vera, with a talking baby dragon on his shoulder felt more dangerous than any war he had fought. Kale was light, barely heavier than a large bird, but her presence was loud in every way. Her golden eyes scanned everything, people, machines, even the sky, with an alertness that made Ren uneasy. Do all humans live in places this small? She asked, her tone somewhere between curiosity and insult. It's not small. It's practical, Ren replied, pushing through the crowd toward his workshop. Not everyone lives in royal palaces, Kale snorted. A surprisingly sharp sound for such a tiny creature. Practical. It smells like oil and dust. Even the air tastes metallic. Welcome to Vera, Ren said flatly. They reached his workshop, a cramped metal building patched together with spare parts and stubbornness. Ren unlocked the door and stepped inside, the familiar smell of grease and burnt wiring washing over him. It wasn't much, but it was his. Kale hopped off his shoulder and began walking around, her claws clicking lightly against the metal floor. She inspected everything like a noble inspecting a servant's home. This is where you live? It's smaller than I expected. Ren dropped his tool bag onto a bench and gave her a look. You're awfully judgmental for someone who was stuffed in a container an hour ago. Kale ignored the comment, climbing onto a crate to get a better view of the room. Where's my bed? Ren raised an eyebrow. Bed, yes, my bed. I'm royalty. I require proper sleeping arrangements. Ren let out a short laugh. Kid, you're lucky you're not sleeping in that container again. Kale crossed her tiny arms. Glaring at him, you're supposed to be my guardian. That means you take care of me. I didn't ask to be your guardian, Ren said, rubbing his forehead. And I didn't ask to be carried off by a grumpy human. Kale shot back. They stared at each other for a moment. A worn-out soldier and a tiny dragon who thought she was a queen. Ren sighed and muttered, this is going to be a nightmare. The rest of the day passed in silence, at least on Ren's side. Kale, however, seemed to have no off switch. Why do humans wear such dull clothes? She asked as he worked on a broken loader. Why do humans drink bitter-smelling liquid from those strange cups? Why are your hands covered in scars? Each time, Ren gave short answers or ignored her entirely. But Kale didn't seem to mind. She just kept talking, as if silence wasn't an option for her. Eventually, Ren sat back in his chair, wiping grease off his hands. Don't you ever stop talking? Kale tilted her head. Talking is how I learn. My father said knowledge is survival. Rin paused. That last line sounded different, heavier. Your father taught you that? He asked. Kale nodded, her voice quieter now. Before he got sick, he told me to listen, to ask questions, to never stop learning. For the first time, Rin saw her not as an arrogant little dragon, but as a child who had just lost her father. You know? He said carefully, for what it's worth. He really cared about you. Kale's golden eyes lowered to the floor. I know. The workshop fell silent. As evening came, Rin made a simple meal. Reheated protein packs and a few vegetables. It wasn't much, but it kept him alive. Kale sniffed the plate he set in front of her. This is food. It's what I eat, Rin said, taking a bite. Kale took a cautious nibble, then wrinkled her nose. This tastes terrible. Then don't eat, Rin replied. Kale huffed but kept eating. Later, Rin tried to sleep on his cot while Kale curled up on a pile of cloth in the corner. The room was quiet except for the hum of a small generator. But just as Rin was starting to drift off, Kale's voice cut through the dark. Why did you say yes? Rin opened one eye. What? To my father, Kale said softly. Why did you agree to take me? You could have refused. Rin stared at the ceiling. I don't know. That's not an answer. Maybe I didn't want to watch you die. There was a long pause. Thank you. Kale whispered our why and didn't reply. But for the first time that night, he didn't feel completely alone. The next morning, Rin woke to the sound of knocking. Loud, heavy knocking. He grabbed a wrench, his only real weapon, and approached the door. Outside stood 3 Drakari nobles, dressed in black-hand gold robes. Their scaled faces were twisted in disgust as they looked at him. Human, the tallest one growled. By order of the Drakari High Council, you will return the heir at once. Rin felt Kale press against his leg, her tiny claws digging into his pants. Not happening, Rin said firmly. The Drakari narrowed his eyes. You defy the will of the council. I follow the king's last order, Rin shot back. The noble hissed. The king is dead. His will die with him. Give us the hatchling, or we will take her by force. Kale's golden eyes glowed faintly. As she stepped forward, you will not touch me, she said, her small voice carrying surprising authority. I am the heir of Zarthos, and this human is under my protection. The nobles laughed. A hatchling's words mean nothing, but Rin saw it, the faint tremor in Kale's claws, the fear behind her proud stance. He tightened his grip. On the wrench, you'll have to go through me first. The nobles stared at him for a moment. Then one sneered. Very well, but you cannot protect her forever, human. When you fall, she will be ours. They turned and left, their footsteps echoing in the dusty street. Rin closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. Kale climbed back onto his shoulder, her small body shaking slightly. They're not going to stop, she whispered. No, Rin said. He stared at the door for a long time. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't a hero. But if they wanted Kale, they'd have to go through him. Very creak of the metal walls, every hum of the generator made him tense. He kept picturing those nobles, their cold reptilian faces, and their promise, you cannot protect her forever. Kale had finally fallen asleep on the pile of cloth in the corner, but even in her rest, her tail twitched restlessly. When morning came, Rin didn't waste time. He packed what little he owned, a few tools, a handful of credits, and a small pulse pistol he hadn't used in years. He threw it all into a worn duffel bag. Kale stirred awake, her golden eyes blinking. Where are we going? Out of here, Rin said, tightening the bag's strap. The longer we stay, the worse it'll get. Kale tilted her head. Are we running? We're surviving, Rin corrected. There's a difference. Kale hopped onto his shoulder, curling her small claws around his jacket. Then we should hurry. They won't wait long. The streets of Vera were alive with the usual chaos, traders shouting, machines clanking, ships landing and taking off. But Rin felt the weight of every stare. Some Drakari merchants sneered when they saw Kale on his shoulder. Others whispered, quickly turning away. They all know. Kale whispered in his ear. Yeah, Rin muttered. Word travels fast. They reached the colony's hangar district. Rin needed transport, But buying a ship was impossible. Even renting one required credits he didn't have. He spotted an old pilot he knew, a weary human named Bren who fixed up junk haulers for off-world trips. Bren said with surprise, wiping grease from his hands. Haven't seen you in months. What do you want? A ride, Ren said. Off this rock. No questions asked. Bren frowned. That'll cost you. Ren dropped his last few credit chips on the counter. This is all I've got. Bren glanced at the small pile of credits, then at Kale. His expression darkened. That's the king's hatchling. Ren's jaw tightened. Is that a problem? Bren leaned in, lowering his voice. Do you know how many people are looking for her? The High Council, bounty hunters, even the old king's rivals? If they find you on my ship, they'll burn me alive. Ren didn't flinch, so don't tell them. Bren hesitated, torn between greed and fear. Before he could answer, Kale spoke. Her voice calm but firm. If you help us, you won't regret it. My father rewarded those who aided him. I will do the same. Bren blinked, taken aback by the little dragon's commanding tone. He glanced between her and Ren, then sighed. You've got one chance. Meet me at Dock 7 in 1 hour. Don't be followed. They left the hangar, but Ren's instinct screamed that something was wrong. Kale felt it too. We're being watched. She whispered .ry and didn't look back. How many? 2, no, 3, Kale said. They're spreading out. Bounty hunters. Ren turned down an alley, moving quickly but not running. The narrow passages between the metal buildings were quieter, but it also meant fewer places to hide. They're closing in, Kale said, her voice tense. Then hang on. Ren darted through the maze-like alleys, his military instincts kicking in. He took sharp turns, doubled back, and used the crowd where he could. But the hunters were skilled. A shadow moved ahead of them, a tall Drakari in dark armor. Blocking the way, Ren skidded to a stop, his hand going to his pistol, hand over the hatchling. The hunter growled, his deep voice like grinding stone. Not happening, Ren said. The Drakari bared his teeth in a grin. Then I'll take her from your corpse. Before the hunter could lunge, Kale leapt from Ren's shoulder. Her tiny body glowed faintly, and she let out a sharp, high-pitched roar, small, but strangely powerful. The hunter flinched, his golden eyes widening for a moment. That hesitation was all Ren needed. He fired. The pulse shot hit the Drakari in the leg, sending him crashing to the ground with a roar of pain. Move, Ren shouted. Kale scrambled back onto his shoulder, and they bolted down another alley. They didn't stop running until they reached an old scrapyard on the colony's edge. Ren slammed the gate shut behind them and crouched behind a rusted engine block, breathing hard. Kale's claws dug into his jacket. That was close. Too close, Ren muttered. Kale glanced up at him. You've done this before. Done what? Running, fighting, surviving. Ren didn't answer. They stayed, hidden for nearly an hour, waiting for the hunters to lose their trail. Kale finally broke the silence. You didn't have to protect me. Ren gave her a tired look. You really think I'd hand over a kid to people who want her dead? Kale tilted her head. You're strange for a human, Ren snorted. You haven't met many humans. She thought for a moment. My father said humans are stubborn. He said that's why he trusted you. Ren looked at her, surprised. He told you that? Kale nodded. He said you were someone who wouldn't quit, no matter what. Ren didn't know how to respond. He wasn't sure he deserved those words. When night fell, they made their way back to the hangar. Bren was waiting by Dock 7, his small cargo hauler ready. You're late, he said. And you look like you've been through a war zone. Long day, Ren replied. Bren glanced around nervously. You weren't followed, right? No, Ren said. But we need to leave. Now. Bren grumbled but opened the ramp. Get in. As they boarded the ship, Kale whispered in Ren's ear. Where will we go? Somewhere they can't find us, Ren said. Kale curled up against his neck, her voice softer now. You're really going to protect me, aren't you? Ren didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the stars through the viewport. Yeah, he said finally. I am. The hauler lifted off, leaving Vera behind, but Ren knew this was only the beginning. The Drakari High Council wanted Kale dead. Bounty hunters were already after them, and somewhere out there, enemies of the king were plotting their next move. He tightened his grip on his duffel bag and looked at the sleeping dragon on his shoulder. He didn't know how long they could survive, but he would make sure they did no matter what. The ship rattled as it left Vera's atmosphere. Ren sat in the co-pilot's seat, gripping the armrest as the old cargo hauler creaked like it was about to fall apart. Bren, the weary pilot, hummed to himself as he pressed buttons and flipped switches, completely unfazed by the noise. Relax, Bren said without looking up. She may be ugly, but she flies. She sounds like she's dying, Ren muttered. She always sounds like that. Kale sat on Ren's lap, her tail swishing as she stared out the viewport at the stars. Her golden eyes widened, reflecting the endless black dotted with distant suns. It's so big, she whispered. That's space, Ren said. Bigger than you can imagine. Kale didn't look away. My father used to tell me stories about the stars. He said dragons were born from them. Ren glanced at her. You believe that? Kale shrugged. I like the thought of it. For a moment, Ren saw her not as a royal heir or a target with a bounty on her head, but as what she really was, a child, seeing the galaxy for the first time. A loud beep interrupted the quiet moment. Bren frowned, tapping a screen. Huh, that's strange. What now? Ren asked. We've got a ship trailing us, Bren said. Not close enough for comms, but close enough to make me nervous. Ren leaned forward. Drakari? Bren squinted. Not sure. Can't get a clear reading. But whoever they are, they're staying just out of sensor range, and that usually means one thing. Hunters, Ren said. Kel's claws dug into his sleeve. They found us already? Looks like it, Bren said grimly. Question is, do we run or do we hide? Ren thought for a moment. Can you lose them? Bren smirked. On a good day, maybe. But with this old crate, not likely. Then find somewhere to land, Ren said. Somewhere they won't follow. Bren's fingers danced over the controls. There's a mining colony, not far from here. Half abandoned, no official traffic. We could disappear there for a while. Do it, Ren said. As Bren set a course, Kale turned to Ren. Why are they hunting me so badly? I'm only a child. Ren hesitated. He didn't want to scare her. But she deserved the truth. Because you're the heir, he said. You're the last of your father's line. That makes you dangerous to people who want power. Kale blinked. Dangerous? I can't even breathe fire yet. You don't need to, Ren said. Your name alone is enough to scare them. Kale looked down at her claws. I don't want to be dangerous. I just want my father. Backburn felt a pang in his chest. He didn't know what to say. So he placed a hand gently on her back. You'll be safe, he said. I promise. Kale looked up at him, her golden eyes shining. Do humans always keep their promises? Ren gave a small, tired smile. The good ones try. Hours passed before they reached the mining colony. It floated in orbit around a dead planet. A collection of rusted metal platforms connected by long tunnels. Most of the lights were out, and half the docking bays were sealed shut. This place looks like it's falling apart, Ren said. Perfect, Bren replied. Nobody will look for you here. The hauler docked with a loud clang. The airlock hissed as it opened, releasing a musty smell that told Ren the place hadn't been properly maintained in years. Welcome to Haven Station, Bren said with a dry laugh. Population, probably less than 20. Kale wrinkled her nose. It smells worse than your workshop, Ren chuckled. At least you're honest. They stepped off the ship, Ren carrying his duffel bag and keeping Kale close. The station's corridors were dimly lit, the walls covered in old mining signs and peeling paint. As they walked, Kale whispered, Do you think the hunters will find us here? Not if we're careful, Ren said. But even as he said it, his instincts screamed that they were still being watched. Bren led them to a small storage room. You can stay here for now. Don't wander. And don't cause trouble. Thanks, Ren said, dropping his bag. Don't thank me yet, Bren replied. If anyone asks, I don't know you. With that, he left, the door creaking shut. Behind him, for a while, Ren and Kale sat in silence. The room was small, barely big enough for a cot and a crate to sit on. Kale curled up on the crate, her wings twitching as she stared at the floor. Are we going to keep running forever? She asked quietly. Ren sat on the cot, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I don't know. Kale looked up at him. You were a soldier, weren't you? My father said soldiers never run, Ren sighed. Soldiers fight for something, right now. I'm just trying to keep us alive. Kale tilted her head. Then what will we fight for? Ren didn't have an answer. Not yet. They spent the night on the station. Ren couldn't sleep. Every sound made him think of the hunters, of the Drakari nobles, of the long road ahead. But Kale slept soundly, curled up like a small cat, her breathing soft. Watching her, Ren felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was protecting someone who needed him. The next morning, Bren returned with a grim look on his face. You've got trouble, he said. Ren stood. What kind? The kind with guns, Bren said. Your friends followed you here, and they've got a whole crew. Kale's eyes widened. The hunters, Bren nodded, and they're not subtle. They're tearing through the station, asking about a human and a dragon. Ren grabbed his duffel bag. Then we leave, now. Bren shook his head. Too late. They've blocked the docks. You're trapped. Ren clenched his fists. Then I'll make us a way out. Kale leapt onto his shoulder, her claws digging in. They won't stop until they catch me. Ren's voice hardened. Then we make them regret trying. For the first time since leaving Vera, Ren wasn't just running. He was ready to fight. And this time, he wasn't fighting for himself. The air inside the station felt heavy. Ren could hear distant footsteps echoing through the old metal halls. Bren wasn't lying. The hunters were here, and they weren't trying to be quiet about it. Kale sat on the crate in the storage room, her tail coiled around her feet. She looked small, even more so than usual. They are close, she whispered. Ren knelt in front of her. Then we need to move fast. Kale tilted her head. Where will we go? You said they blocked the docks. I'll make a way, Ren said. She studied him for a moment. You sound sure. I've been in worse situations, Ren replied. Standing up, at least this time. I'm not alone. Kale blinked, then gave a small nod. Bren burst into the room, his face pale. Bad news. They've split into teams. They're searching every level. It's only a matter of time before they find you. Then I'll go to them, Ren said. Bren stared at him. What? Are you crazy? There are at least 6 of them, Ren tightened the strap of his duffel bag. If I wait here, they'll corner us. If I move first, I control where the fight happens. Bren shook his head. You're out of your mind. Ren gave him a hard look. I've been out of my mind for a long time. He left the storage room, Kale clinging to his shoulder. The corridors were dim, lit only by flickering lights. The old station creaked with every step. Kale whispered in his ear. I hear them, to ahead. One moving fast behind us. Ren nodded. We'll deal with them one at a time. He reached a wide junction where several corridors met. He stopped there deliberately, a good spot for an ambush. Stay low, he told Kale, lowering her gently onto the floor. If anything happens to me, run back to Bren. Kale narrowed her eyes. I won't leave you. Do as I say, Ren said firmly. For once, Kale didn't argue. The first hunter appeared moments later, a tall Drakari in black armor, his glowing visor scanning the corridor. There you are, the hunter growled. Ren didn't speak. He raised his pulse pistol and fired. The shot hit the Drakari's shoulder, but the alien didn't go down. He snarled and charged, drawing a blade that shimmered with electric energy. Ren sidestepped at the last second, grabbing the Drakari's arm and slamming him into the wall. The hunter struggled, but Ren twisted his arm and sent the blade clattering to the floor. Before Ren could finish him, Kale hissed sharply, Behind you? Ren spun just as another hunter appeared from the left corridor, rifle raised. He dove for cover as shots tore through the wall where he'd been standing. The first Drakari recovered. Lunging for his weapon, Ren kicked it farther away, then pulled a small smoke grenade from his duffel bag, one of the few military tools he still had. He yanked the pin and threw it, the corridor filled with thick gray smoke. Stay close, Ren called to Kale. She scrambled up his arm as he crouched low and slipped past the blinded hunters. They moved quickly through the maze of corridors, but Kale could sense more of them coming. They're all around, she whispered. 4. Ahead, to behind. They are closing in. Ren's mind raced. He couldn't take that many in a straight fight. He needed an advantage. Is there a control room here? He asked. Kale tilted her head. A place to control the station. Yes. Down one level. Good. Ren said. We're going there. They descended a narrow staircase into the station's control level. Most of the panels were broken, but some still hummed with weak power. Ren quickly scanned the consoles. Come on. Come on. What are you looking for? Kale asked. Doors. I want to lock them in, Ren said. His hands flew over the controls, rerouting what little power the station had left. Old security doors groaned as they slid into place, sealing off some of the upper corridors. But then the console sparked and died. Power's gone, Ren muttered. That won't hold them for long. Kale said. Doesn't need to, Ren replied. Just long enough. The hunter's footsteps echoed above them. Kale's tail flicked nervously. They're coming. Ren took a deep breath. Good. Let them. The first two hunters burst through the door. Ren fired before they could react, his pulse shots forcing them into cover. Another hunter rushed in from the side, swinging a heavy club-like weapon. Ren barely dodged, the swing smashing into the wall, indenting the metal. He grabbed a loose pipe from the floor and jammed it into the hunter's knee joint, making the alien roar in pain. Kale, perched on a console, hissed loudly. Ren, behind you. He spun just in time to block another strike with his makeshift weapon. Sparks flew as the energy blade sliced through the pipe. Ren had no choice. He threw the broken pipe at the hunter's face and lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The fight was brutal and fast. Ren used every trick he remembered from his days as a soldier, elbows, knees, anything to stay alive. When one hunter tried to grab Kale, she reacted on instinct. She opened her tiny mouth and let out a sharp roar. But this time, something strange happened. A burst of golden light flashed from her, knocking the hunter back like he'd been hit by a shockwave. Ren froze for a moment, stunned. Kale blinked in surprise. I didn't know I could do that. Ren smirked despite the chaos. Good timing. The remaining hunters saw they were losing ground. One growled into his comm. We need reinforcements. Ren didn't give them the chance. He grabbed the energy blade from the fallen Drakari and pointed it at the others. Walk away, he said, his voice low and dangerous. The hunters hesitated. They weren't afraid of him. They were afraid of the little dragon glowing with strange golden energy behind him. The hunters slowly backed away, dragging their injured with them. This isn't over, human, one hissed before retreating. I know, Ren said. When the room was quiet again, Ren finally sat down, breathing hard. Kale climbed onto his shoulder, her scales still faintly glowing. Are you hurt? She asked softly. Just tired, Ren said. Kale curled against his neck. You didn't leave me. Ren gave a tired smile. Told you I wouldn't, for the first time. Kale understood why her father trusted this human. And for the first time, Ren realized Kale wasn't as helpless as he thought. She had power, and that power could change everything. The silence after the fight felt strange. Ren sat against the cold wall of the control room, breathing heavily. His pulse was still racing, his body sore from the brutal clash. Kale perched on his shoulder, her scales faintly glowing, her golden eyes watching him carefully. You are bleeding, she said softly. Ren glanced at his arm. A shallow cut from one of the hunters. It's nothing, he muttered. It doesn't look like nothing, Kale insisted. Ren smirked. You sound like someone's parent. Kale puffed out her chest. I am a princess. I am supposed to care for my people. Ren chuckled despite himself. Then I guess I'm lucky to be your people. For a brief moment, the two of them shared a small, quiet peace. But it didn't last. Bren entered the room in a hurry, sweat on his forehead. You two made quite the mess, he said. You're welcome, Ren replied dryly. Bren crossed his arms. You need to leave. Now, those hunters will bring more. And this time, they won't just send a small team. They'll bring an army. Ren stood, wincing at the ache in his muscles. Can you get us off the station? Bren shook his head. Docks are still locked down. But he hesitated. Ren raised an eyebrow. But what? There's an old escape shuttle in the lower bay. Barely works. Half the systems are dead. But it might be your only chance. Then that's where we're going, Ren said. Bren stared at him like he was insane. You do realize if it fails, you'll drift into open space and freeze to death, right? Better than being captured, Ren said. They didn't waste time. The three of them moved quickly through the narrow corridors of the mining station. Every creak of metal made Ren tense. He knew the hunters could return at any moment. Kale, still glowing faintly, whispered, "They are coming back." Ren glanced at her. "You can feel them?" Kale nodded slowly. "It's like I can hear their anger. Far away, but close at the same time." Ren didn't know what to make of that. "Stay focused. We just need to reach the shuttle." The lower bay was worse than Ren expected. The ceiling lights were shattered, leaving only the pale glow of emergency panels. The old shuttle sat in the center, covered in dust and rust, its once white surface now a dull brown. "That's it?" Ren asked, unimpressed. "That's it," Bren replied. "I told you it was old. Will it even fly?" Bren shrugged. "Depends on your definition of fly." Kale tilted her head. "I like this one. It looks brave," Ren gave her a side glance. "Brave. Yes," Kale said seriously. "It is old, but it still waits to fight." Ren snorted. "If you say so." They climbed aboard. The inside wasn't much better. Cracked seats, broken panels, and a stale smell that made Ren cough. Bren slid into the pilot's chair. "I'll need a minute to get her running. Maybe two." "You have one," Ren said. Kale sat next to Ren, curling her tail around herself. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly. Ren glanced at her. "Of what?" "Of dying," she said. Ren was silent for a moment. "Not really." "Why?" Kale tilted her head. "Because I've already made peace with it," Ren said simply. Kale frowned. "That is a sad answer." Ren looked at her. "Then why aren't you afraid?" Kale thought about it, then said, "Because I'm not alone." Something about that hit Ren harder than he expected. A loud bang shook the shuttle. "They're here!" Bren yelled. Ren grabbed his pistol and moved to the door. "Keep working." The hunters had found them. The bay doors slammed open, and more armored Drakari poured in, weapons ready. "Give us the air," their leader shouted. "And we will spare you, human." Ren stepped out just enough for them to see him. Not a chance. The hunters fired. Ren ducked back behind the shuttle as plasma bolts tore through the walls. "Ren," Kale cried. "I'm fine," he yelled. Bren's fingers flew across the shuttle controls. "Almost there. Almost." Then it happened. Kale jumped down from her seat and stood in the open, her small form glowing brighter than before. The hunters paused. "Surprised, get back here," Ren shouted. But Kale didn't move. She took a deep breath. "You will not take me," she said, her voice louder than it should have been for her size. And then, like before, the golden light erupted from her body. But this time, it wasn't a small burst. It was a wave, a powerful shock that swept across the bay, knocking the hunters off their feet and sending their weapons flying. The metal walls trembled. The old shuttle groaned. Even Ren felt the force of it, like standing too close to a thunderclap. When the light faded, Kale stumbled, exhausted. Ren rushed to her, catching her before she fell. "Kale, are you okay?" She nodded weakly. "I didn't know I could do that." Ren held her close. "You're full of surprises." Bren shouted from the cockpit. "I've got it. We're leaving." Ren carried Kale aboard and strapped her in. The shuttle engines roared to life, sputtering and coughing before finally stabilizing. The hunters scrambled to their feet, but it was too late. The shuttle lifted off, rising through the broken ceiling, panels and into open space. As the station grew smaller behind them, Kale looked up at Ren. "Why did they want me so badly?" she asked softly. Ren hesitated. He didn't want to tell her. Not yet, but she deserved to know. "Because you're not just a princess," Ren said finally. "You're more than that." Kale blinked. "More?" Ren nodded. "That power you used, that wasn't normal. It's why they're afraid of you. It's why they'll keep chasing you." Kale lowered her head. "Then, I am a danger." "No," Ren said firmly. "You're hope. And people fear hope when it's not theirs to control." Kale stared at him, silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Will you protect me?" Ren gave a tired but sure smile. "Until my last breath." The stars stretched before them as the shuttle jumped into hyperspace. The station, the hunters. The pain, all of it faded behind them. Kale curled up next to Ren, her eyes closing. "Where will we go now?" she murmured. Ren looked out at them. "Endless stars. Somewhere they can't find us," he said. "And when you're ready, we'll go back. And take back what's yours." Kale smiled faintly before drifting to sleep. Ren watched her, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning.